It's time for AggroChat, the official podcast of the Tales of the Aggronaut blog and stalwart gaming community, where we talk about stuff and things, and the stuff about the things, and sometimes gaming. I'm Belgast, and let's start the show. Hey folks, it's that time again. Time for another episode of AggroChat. This is episode 256. No, 255. Crap.
Nice.
So someone is being clever with the names of the channels, so yeah. But we're going to leave this in. Tonight I'm joined by Ammo.
It says FF. That's 255.
Hello.
Ashgar.
I blame Tam.
Godra.
I don't even.
Tam.
I originally had it as 16-bit, which I thought was more obvious.
But also incorrect.
Thalen.
Hey there. I blame everyone.
That's probably accurate.
Yeah, but see, like in my mind, 255 is actually 256 because it's the 256 value. Since, you know, those numbers go 0 to 255 instead of 1 to 256.
Zero
Anyway.
indexing is a decision that we made, and I'm not sure it was the correct one.
But I've
do
been
anything
so,
about it now.
I'm so used to it, though, my brain just adjusts. Like, and I think of things as, 255 is 256. Okay. Anyway, so yeah, numbers.
Numbers.
We're gonna do a show where we mostly talk about things that got announced, and then we have another topic at the bottom if we run out of things to say about things that got announced.
It's almost like there's an electronic expo happening, an electronic entertainment expo happening right now. Actually, it's happening next week.
Next week?
But the actual electronic entertainment expo doesn't actually matter. Everyone just pre-show announces stuff now.
Right. Like, nothing happens during the show that matters to anyone not on the show floor. All of the stuff is front-loaded and is, like, progressively more front-loaded.
Fascinating how we got to this point.
Normally, conferences would have started today, but this year, nobody waited until Saturday to announce things.
Because it doesn't matter. Like, E3 is not for anybody anymore.
Well, and like we're starting to see like breaking out of that mold, because like even the thing that EA was doing today, which we'll talk more about later, is kind of a break in the mold from having like a big presentation at some theater, whereas it was just a bunch of streams that happened sporadically through the afternoon. So yeah.
Can we blame Nintendo for this?
We can blame Nintendo. We can blame Nintendo for, you know, Treehouse and Nintendo Direct being so damn successful.
I mean, Nintendo was doing this first, though, right? Like they were the first ones to break out of and do
they're like, we don't need to have like the show in the theater, do a press conference, all that. We'll just give you this half-hour video that we prepared ahead of time,
and it works really well. Like it's an amazing sequence. So I don't know, let me actually put these in correct order. The first actual E3 show of sorts is Google did a thing on Stadia where they finally announced like what the cost is going to be, and they gave this presentation that's super confusing because I feel like the presentation was actually targeted towards not their demographic. I do not feel like Google Stadia is really targeted towards core gamers.
No.
Like it doesn't make sense for it to be targeted towards core gamers. However, they put on a show that is largely attempting to target it towards core gamers.
I mean, these all sound like core gamer games.
They announced a lot of core gamer games.
Mm-hmm.
They did. However, I still feel like their market is going to be, and Ash has basically said all this stuff before, and I said it in a blog post, that like their market is going to be somebody that has decent internet bandwidth, but doesn't own the hardware currently to play games, but occasionally wants to play a game with their friends.
And doesn't mind the idea of the game one day no longer being available to them.
Let's not forget, also reasonably well paid in a major city.
Yeah, and that's like, I feel like they spent all this effort to market the like Founders Pack and Pro version that requires a subscription. But I feel like the real product here is the basic version that is 1080p, 60 frames per second, stereo sound. Because really, unless you have gigabit internet or higher, you're not going to get 4K. Like, I mean, I'd also like
to point out that that's exactly what I'm getting on my PS4 right now. 1080p stereo sound.
Right. Mm-hmm. And that's going to be good enough for a lot of people. And I think if Stadia works, it lowers the entry point for like a game company to where, you just buy the Stadia version if you don't have like hardware. You know, you just have a mobile device that you can hook up a Bluetooth controller. Awesome. Just do that. I think that is a compelling argument for Stadia. But in order for that to work, the ecosystem has to be funded by the people willing to pay for the premium version. And I just don't know what that market looks like.
This list is doing a very good job at being pretty diverse, honestly.
They did do that.
And they flashed a bunch of names like Rockstar, and like there's a lot of games that folks may want to try, but don't want to shell out like realistically, is like, say you want to play a modern game, you've got the option of shelling out $350 by the time you've bought a console and bought the game, or $1,500 to buy a reasonable PC to play the game on, plus your $60 game. That's a lot of an ask for like a situation where a game comes out that you remember fondly from your childhood or past gaming experiences and would like to revisit, but don't already own the hardware, but you do have a business class laptop or a Chromebook or a tablet and could in theory play the game that way. And I don't know if that market exists, but I have a feeling it probably does.
I mean, I feel like this is, hey, do you like watching movies via Netflix on your TV? Would you like to play games via a Netflix-like service on your TV? Here, let us provide you with the solution for that.
Problem.
Yeah, but I'm not watching...
several problems here.
Yeah, I'm not watching a movie for 60 hours and then having Netflix take the movie away before I finished the movie, which is a thing that could happen here.
Ignoring Google's tendency to close underperforming things.
No, even if they don't, without closing it, I mean, there's no promise that any of these games won't get delisted at some point in the future.
Like, that is what happens, they're just gone. Netflix. Yeah.
I think the Netflix for video games concept is wrong when it comes to this service, because mostly they're talking about how about you just buy a game. And
you still need to buy the games mostly.
Whereas Microsoft is about to launch xCloud that is probably going to integrate with Game Pass, and that does have a bajillion games that you can just download and play, as it is right now on like an Xbox. But if you could just hit play and start playing that library, that becomes a way more compelling model than what Google is pitching.
What library is that, Bill?
The Xbox Game Pass. So basically, any first-party Xbox game, the second it's available, is available through Games Pass. And a huge back catalog of Xbox titles.
Yeah, but what I guess I'm looking at is this has a lot of new titles and a lot of like hot new titles. Like Borderlands 3 is on this list. Baldur's Gate 3 is on this list. Is Baldur's Gate 3 even going to be out by the time Stadia comes out?
I think it's November launch this year. And
for Baldur's Gate 3?
Well, for Stadia. And only for like the Founders Pack people. Like, it's not going to launch for everyone else until next year is what they said.
I don't expect to see Baldur's Gate 3 this November. That's what you're asking. No.
I was going to say, that's why, are these games going to be out by the time Stadia releases?
I don't know.
Yeah, I guess what I'm saying is there's a lot of very new titles, and they aren't just limited to the first-party Xbox ones, which is an attractive offering, I think.
Right, but those are not part of the subscription. those are things that are going to be available for sale through the Stadia store. They've not announced what their freebies as part of this, $10 a month subscription looks like. Like, they've not said what that looks like yet. But I highly doubt all these titles are going to be available through that.
I feel like that would be the selling point, though, right? Like, hey, we can get new titles on here. You can play new games, like, not just old games. And sure, like, I imagine they would probably start rotating things out, but maybe they would try and they would probably rotate things out based on popularity. So hopefully some of their more eternal games have a little bit longer legs.
Right, but if you're talking about I'm going to have to buy this game through Stadia or I'm going to have to buy it on an existing platform, I still don't think it's a terribly compelling sell for anyone that owns hardware capable of playing games.
I will agree that it's not a compelling sell. I did not realize you would have to pay a $10 subscription and buy the game still.
Yeah, so the $10 subscription basically gives you premium streaming, so like 4K, surround sound.
I mean, it says it grants you access to Google's library in this article I'm reading.
And we don't know what that library looks like. I have said that a lot of the games are going to be direct purchase, but we don't know what that library is going to be. They specifically said they would be adding and removing titles from it. So depending on what that looks like, yeah, I don't know what the value is going to be like.
I mean, content is king, right? So all is make or break on those.
The only things that I know have been confirmed that are going to be functionally free is Elder Scrolls Online. You'll be able to play the free version of Elder Scrolls Online, and there is a new free version of Destiny 2 that we'll talk about in a little bit. That is going to be playable through Stadia. And if you end up buying like the Founders Pack, they give you like a version of Destiny 2 that has like a bunch of content unlocked. I think the biggest problem xCloud is going to have is I think it still requires you to have some amount of hardware. But
I am
not seeing the Microsoft show then.
I am curious about this controller. This controller does not engender confidence in me. Just from the images.
I'm sure it'll be fine. It looks like wait.
Well, and it's got some weird stuff going on too. Whereas the controller is actually what's connected to the cloud to play games. And they're basically using a Chromecast as a visualization layer. So it's going to be weird. Like in theory, that's supposed to reduce the latency. Which is always your problem when streaming, like streaming a game from anywhere. Mm-hmm. I mean, I've not actually played much with like a true cloud gaming service, but I've used the hell out of Parsec, which is a really thin streaming client that allows you to stream games. And just in my own house, 4K streaming over my AC 5400 wireless network or semi-wired, it's not really doable. Like I do not feel like I have enough bandwidth to make that a lag-free experience. So I already play everything 1080p anyway.
Like, and that's what I'm just not sure on. Who is going to have that much bandwidth and the necessary hardware for all that and not have
a console already?
Console or gaming PC.
Yeah,
like, I don't think streaming 4K from Netflix I don't think that's enough of an audience. I don't know.
Well, and I mean my base internet is 300 megabit.
Yeah.
Which is still considerably higher than most of the United States.
Yeah, that is well above average.
I have exactly 1 gigabit offering right now, and that's as fast as I can get in my area, regardless of money outlay, unless I'm just buying a leased line. And that's a whole other madness. I am not going to spend $3,500 a month on a 10 gig line. But yeah, I mean, I'm interested in this. I think it could be really cool. What they're going to have to do to make this a really compelling argument for me is to figure out ways to have crossplay on more games. Because if I could be playing from my PS4 and another person is playing from their PC and someone is playing from like an iPad with a Bluetooth controller and we're all playing games together, then Stadia becomes a really interesting proposal. But I don't know if that's going to happen, considering we're just now starting to see cross saves and very limited crossplay, which I guess to some extent leads us to the next topic. The new Destiny expansion actually announced through the Stadia presentation, and as part of it, they announced that cross saves are coming to Destiny 2. And it is not the version of cross saves that I would like to see, but it is a version that is functional. There will be no merging of client saves, so I'm basically going to have to pick which platform I am the most progressed on, and that will be my cloud save from that point on. And at this point, like, it's a no-brainer because I have more stuff on the PC, but I did have some raid weapons on the PS4 that I would have loved to have carried forward. Also, they're doing a free-to-play version of the game, and they're drastically shifting the way that they're going to be releasing content to a piecemeal fashion, much like Elder Scrolls Online has done, except for there's no real subscription option to just get it all. I mean, I guess technically there'll be battle passes, which will give you multiple seasons in a row. Additionally, it looks like they will be abandoning Battle.net, which is not a huge shock given the split with Activision, and they will be going to Steam. And starting as of Shadowkeep and Destiny 2 New Light, which is the free-to-play version, everything will be through Steam on the PC.
That part actually is a surprise to me.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's been moving to the Epic Game Store. It's interesting to see somebody that has, like, famously been the big holdout from Steam move to it.
Well, I mean, they are right down the street from Valve, so, or at least theoretically down the street, so...
And they're not actually that close.
Look, it's the same damn town, or the same metro area.
I mean, they're kind of close.
Guess they're like smack in the middle of Bellevue, and Valve is sort of...
Valve is also in downtown Bellevue, I thought.
Yep.
Oh, I thought they were farther away than that.
No.
So yeah, I mean, like, honestly, there's... The one thing that I took away from... So after the Stadia show, Bungie followed up with their own little detailed talk about everything that was coming in. And I have to say, like, the way that they approached that was really cool. They literally just set up cameras in the kitchen at Bungie. So, like, back behind them, you can see, like, the entire floor working on stuff. So you just see, like, tons of little cubicles with machines and people, like, cheering in the background as various things are said. It's a way more personable approach to this than I've seen from Bungie. And they had, like, one of the YouTubers collect questions from the community and, you know, basically interview Luke Smith, asking him all these things that people had questions about. So, like, that was really cool to see how that worked. They called it an action MMO for the first time.
They finally admitted it.
And they said they're going to lean into the MMO aspect of it. I guess they're working on a new armor system that will allow greater customization.
What does lean into the MMO aspect mean at this point?
Glamours. So many glamours.
Glamours, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, the true end game.
I was like, what does it mean to be an MMO in this day and age? And that makes me sad that that is the answer.
I mean, I'm being a little facetious, but I kind of think that, like, character customization is one of the big things at this point.
They're putting in, like, new stuff. They put in, like, a finisher system, apparently, with the new expansion.
Finisher, like, Warframe?
I don't know how they work in Warframe, like, but you basically have an attack that finishes off the whatever you're fighting if they get to a certain point.
Okay, so not like Warframe. Warframe mostly is the stealth thing.
Oh, yeah, no, this is like, I am fighting this thing, and I'm going to use this powerful move that's going to just finish the battle.
Sword that wins the battle. Got it.
Yeah, so, like, the Titan one, for example, is that they jump up in the air, and they kind of cock their arm back and then just slam it down on the target, punching them to death.
I mean, isn't the Titan Super already... Well, I guess one of them anyway.
Yeah, one of them
Already
is a
kind
bunch.
of that.
Yeah. I'm guessing this is usable more often. I don't know. I mean, we've not seen it, other than the fact that they said it's a thing that's going to exist. All in all, though, like, it seems like they're exiting Activision land in a pretty good place. They have made a bunch of changes to the way that the store in game works with the latest season that just started on the 4th, called the Season of Opulence. There's a bunch of stuff that's just available to buy outright instead of getting through loot crates. I mean, because you can call the Ingrams whatever the hell you want, but they're basically loot crates. They're loot crates that are earnable in game, but they're loot crates. So
we would like to avoid legislation in the EU.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, like, every 7 days, they're rotating a list of items that are buyable direct, just outright buyable, or purchasable directly with the Bright Dust, which is the thing you get from dismantling other stuff.
Right.
Warframe actually recently removed its random mod packs, and I strongly suspect that's for the same reason.
It could be. Like, right now, with Season of Opulence, they didn't add anything new to the loot boxes. Instead, you're getting, since Season of Opulence is like the last season for this year, or for the year, you get like a combo. This thing could drop anything that's dropped from one of these before. And I think it favors things you've never seen before. Like, there's not a way for duplicates to drop. So, like, they still happen pretty regularly, like, just by playing the game. And I ended up picking up, like, one of the exotic ships that I missed from a previous season. So, like, there's a certain amount of catch-up mechanics going on. Additionally, like, this shocked me. There's an initial quest chain that you follow to unlock the central thing for Season of Opulence. And by doing that, you keep getting little packs full of gear that take you up to 690, which is a reasonable level to do anything. I think the maximum cap for Season of Opulence is 750, so that takes you to a better place than if you had just never played the game since launch.
I was going to say, that's over quite a bit over double the original cap.
Right, exactly. Like, it was a sizable upgrade for me, and I set out a season. Because, like, 650 was the last cap when I played. And so that took me up to a point where, like, I felt like I could do any of this stuff. Anyway, all in all, I'm pretty impressed with the direction the game's going in. And I'm super happy to see cross saves. I would be even happier if they put in crossplay. And the rumor is that, and there's, to some extent, there's a validation of this in the Stadia show, that literally the night before the reveal, Sony was not on board with cross saves. And they managed to convince them right before the live presentation to say yes to cross saves. Because ultimately what was going to happen was that it was going to be cross saves for PC and Xbox only.
Yeah, that would have made me sad.
Yep, it would have made me real sad. Also, in doing so, though, they have officially done away with any exclusive content for any platform.
Fine with me.
Which makes sense, because, like, that was an Activision and Sony thing. Because, like, all of the Activision games have some kind of exclusive content for Sony.
I think they started that with Call of Duty.
But moving away from Activision, I mean, has made that, I guess, to where they don't have to do that anymore. But anyway, I think all of this stuff lands in September, which is kind of soon in the grand scheme of things.
How are you feeling about the, like, so we're going back to the moon, right? How are you feeling about the story?
Oh man, I am so ready to go back to the moon. The story is largely nonsense, and that was one of the things that Dado, the community guy, grilled Luke Smith on, is how nonsense and disconnected all of the story content has been. And he basically said that he really wants this to lead somewhere. Because it's like we've had a bunch of disconnected little batches of story that don't actually connect up or go anywhere. And according to Luke Smith, it is eventually going somewhere.
So isn't
so we'll see.
Isn't what's her name the Hive related?
Eris Morn is coming back.
Yeah, Eris Morn's coming back, right?
And we don't know if she is a good character or a bad character.
Yeah. First step to Cade 6 coming back.
I mean,
he still owes her a ship. You think she's going to let death stop her getting that back?
It's true. Well, I mean, Cade 6 is an Exo, so...
That too.
I was going to say, also, is Cade 6 still dead?
Cade 6 is still dead.
Oh.
I'm guessing he's dead until they and Nathan Fillion, come to some sort of deal for him to come back.
Yeah, so there's another monkey wrench in this, and it's
I'm guessing
spoilers.
It's just too expensive at this point.
And I don't know how much you care about spoilers at this point for Destiny.
Like you said the story's nonsense.
Just said the story is nonsense. So
yeah, so at some point at the end of one of the raid quests, the Uldren Sov gets brought back as a guardian. And so that's a whole thing that is largely unresolved, and they've not gone anywhere with yet.
Remind me again who he was?
The Crow, the brother of the Queen.
The asshole.
Okay.
The one that basically kills Cade 6.
Got it.
But guardian him is a new person, so...
Yeah, so, right. So that's the thing, is like, supposedly when you get brought back as a guardian, all of your memories are wiped. So, yeah, like, who knows what that's gonna factor into in the future. Will Guardian Uldren end up being the new Hunter Vanguard? I don't know. But, again, the story is largely nonsense. Like, the lore is really interesting and the world building is really interesting, but the story is largely nonsense. But I'm totally down for them to bring back the moon, and they're supposedly making it significantly bigger than it was. Which is good, given that the moon was one of the smallest destinations in Destiny 1.
Mm-hmm.
But it was also a really cool destination. I enjoyed the moon. Seeing
That's
all
where
of
wizards come from.
It's true.
I like how that line that didn't even make it past beta is just an internal part of the game now.
Yep. So another thing that came out of the Stadia presentation is the fact that we're getting a Baldur's Gate 3.
Yes.
I mean, we know next to nothing about it other than there'll be Ithalids, so...
Yay, Mind Flayers.
Illithids.
Yay, Mind Flayers. It's also by Larian, so that's interesting.
I'm just curious, is it actually going to connect to the story of the first two? Like, I assume we're going to be playing a new character, because that would be difficult to make sense at all.
They said that, there's a whole little video, Vidoc, from Larian folks talking about how they wanted to do this for years, and they wanted to carry on and make a sequel to the Baldur's Gate series, and that, because of Original Sin, they finally got, a thumbs up to do this thing. And I fully expect it to at least be set in the same world.
I mean, Baldur's Gate is a city in that world, so it...
Right.
That's almost like non-negotiable.
Yeah, I mean, but I fully expect there to be like characters or at least references to characters from the previous games.
Look, Minsc and Boo had better be in it. That's all
Exactly.
I can say.
Get Imo in.
Yeah. I honestly didn't care about her at all during the first one, but then the second one made her really cool.
It's so okay. I've been digging up a bunch of old stuff to see if it holds up, and one of the things I've been doing is playing the original Baldur's Gate on tablet, and that game is old, and it doesn't stop you from doing stupid things.
No, it's very much an old school CRPG.
Yeah,
You can make mistakes, and sorry.
My first attempt to play the game was a multiplayer game with two people in this channel, and one of them decided to try to steal from the wizard, and it went very badly, and we all died immediately.
Was that me?
It may have been you.
Oh no, that was a bad choice.
Yeah.
I feel like overall the second game holds up better than the first game.
I haven't gotten to the second game. I definitely want to see that. But
the second one was post-Torment, and I think they took some of what they learned from that.
I believe it. But even the first one has, there's a bunch of really interesting stuff going on. It's outdated in a whole bunch of ways. Surprise to nobody. But it has it has an available cast of playable characters that makes, I want to say, Chrono Cross look small, but it doesn't. Not really quite that level, but it's close.
It's pretty close though, yeah.
And there's a bunch of really cool stuff. There's a bunch of really cool stuff going on with it, and as long as you understand the guide rails it's giving you, there's a whole bunch of really cool stuff you can do. It's got some hot nonsense mechanically speaking, because it's just copying AD&D, and I don't care what you say, Thaco is dumb.
Yeah, no, it was second edition, and yeah.
Good luck finding out if gear is an upgrade. Just good luck. You won't. It's not helpful. But that having been said, I'm excited about the new one because I thought that nobody remembered Baldur's Gate, and I guess I shouldn't be surprised that Larian does.
I mean, I feel like most of their songs have been love songs to that era.
Yeah, I mean, they took the Baldur's Gate model and said, "Hey, let's fix the parts of it that don't really work." Oh wow, check out what we got.
And I mean that because most of their games have been vastly different games, but they're doing a lot of the same things that, I mean, there's lots of little hidden Easter eggs like there was in Baldur's Gate. There's so much content that you may never see in Baldur's Gate.
Mm-hmm.
Divine Divinity, despite looking a lot like Diablo, has a lot of stuff in it.
Yeah.
So this is also interesting because Divine Divinity Original Sin was a turn-based game, and that's not how the Baldur's Gates were, right?
No.
They're real-time with pause.
Real-time with pause. Which
I'm
is
curious.
The pause is important.
It's not a good system. Put it that way.
I was going to say, I am enjoying Kingmaker, but I still don't think that's a good game system. Because they're trying to real-time turn-based thing without giving you the fidelity to manage your turns.
Yeah.
And so I'm curious to see if they bring that to this game.
I sort of wonder what system they're going to use for this game. If they're going to use, be completely
5e?
faithful, like Neverwinter Nights and the old Baldur's Gate games and just use 5e, or if they're going to do their own thing.
I really hope that it's I don't know. I really hope that they use the Divinity Original Sin core, because that core is really good. I keep bouncing off of Divinity Original Sin and Original Sin 2 because I don't really care much about their world, but their systems are great.
Yeah, I do not think faithfulness to D&D is a good thing in a PC game.
No.
And there will be people that probably disagree with me, but
you're making me sad.
Be wrong.
I want to disagree with you, but I don't know if I can.
Exactly. It's I think it's really nice because, I played a lot of D&D. I understand how this game works. But also, there's a lot of kludge that goes on, especially in early D&D. And that was not great. And while I think modern D&D does a much better job, I'm not sure if faithful representation is a good thing either.
On the other hand, if they go with faithful representation, they can say, as seen on Critical Role.
I mean, I know dice are going to be involved, probably.
Yeah, I'd be very surprised if it didn't involve rolling digital 20-sided dice.
I mean, I would be perfectly fine if they go through that nonsense, so long as they show two, really cool dice, hit the ground, and let you customize those dice.
I'm okay with them invisibly rolling dice behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Really, I am.
I mean, long story short, though, is I'm going to play the hell out of it, whatever it ends up being, because I really liked that setting.
I'm also curious, that setting, actually in D&D is really different now than it was when Baldur's Gate and Baldur's Gate 2 came out. There's been, I think, multiple, basically, apocalypses in the realms at this point. So I'm really curious, is it going to be set in the current version of the realms, after all that happened? Or back shortly after the events of the second game? I'm very curious about that.
Yeah.
I should do what Tam's doing, since they play fairly well on tablet.
They really
play
do.
them on the tablet.
They really do play pretty well on tablet.
So, continuing down the path of things that have been mentioned, in reference to E3. Last year we talked about Jedi Fallen Order being probably vaporware, considering there was just a logo. Today they showed off gameplay, or supposed gameplay.
I was going to say, that doesn't mean there's actually a game.
But it's closer than it has been previously.
And really, like, this game, like, based on what we're seeing, is kind of following in the footsteps of, what were the Sky Killer games? Force Unleashed.
Ah.
Oh, so it's an action RPG.
It is an action RPG.
I guess I think of the Jedi Knight series more than that, I guess. But mostly because I think of the last one, which was not as much of an FPS as the first two.
Yeah, but they didn't necessarily have platforming elements, though.
They kind of did.
Definitely does. And also, you have Jedi Double Jump.
Jedi Academy has Force Jump. Mm-hmm. And you need to use it.
I guess I mostly just remember playing Jedi Academy multiplayer. Like, I do not remember the actual Jedi Academy game.
That seems fair.
I really love those games. I loved every game in that series, including the ones that didn't have that series name.
What would you like to call the series name? Just out of curiosity, since none of them share none of them share all the titles.
The Jedi games that were good.
I think Force Unleashed was good.
Okay,
so
at what point in the series, be charitable to Force Unleashed, the Jedi PC games.
At what point in the series does it become that then? Because the first game wasn't a Jedi game.
Dark Forces.
Depends on your view.
I thought for a second that this was young Kyle Katarn, because I thought they called him Kyle, but I guess it's Cal or something like that.
I'm so sad that Kyle Katarn has not been resurrected in anything, because he's such a great character. Like, I kind of understand why they haven't retrieved him fully, but
yeah, I mean, he's mildly absurd in his final form.
He's
what if Han Solo was Luke Skywalker, and
I mean, let's be honest, Kyle Katarn is one of the many characters that explore the question, what if Luke Skywalker wasn't a putz?
Yeah, basically.
Because that's what everybody
wanted.
You got
Corran Horn. Yeah, that's
And there's a long string of these characters, and Kyle Katarn is one of them.
What's interesting here is they've said this is a canon character now. Like, this will be a character that will show up in other things.
Bold.
Because the gameplay demo shows Saw Gerrera in it.
Much like the game itself, I'll believe it when I see it.
This very much looks like this.
So it's
is
set around
Frostbite
Rebels
engine.
then?
Yeah,
Okay.
Because it's got Inquisitors in it. It's got there's a trooper type that they called a Purge trooper that supposedly its purpose is to spar with the Jedi until an Inquisitor can show up to capture them or dispatch them. It's very much a Frostbite engine, and it looks like this was built in the Battlefield 2 engine of sorts, or variant, because all the titling looks exactly like Battlefield 2. Battlefront. Yeah, there you go, that word. So I'm guessing they put this together using assets from that game.
That makes sense. I think Battlefront 2 had a story mode too, so...
It did. And at least the way that they introduce the gameplay and scene transitions and cinematic pullbacks of the camera look a lot like they did in Battlefront 2. I mean, it will probably be interesting. I could play another game like Force Unleashed. It had some really cool moments. Once you once you ignore the nonsense storyline.
I think that was a good game despite its story, so sure. Mostly despite its story.
Its storyline is largely, what if Darth Vader had an apprentice that turned against him?
I mean, haven't there been several stories about that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's a popular concept.
Darth Vader is a very popular bad guy, but it is progressively less vaporware. It is also supposedly coming out in November.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how many times I can say I'll believe it when I see it.
Yeah.
I remain unconvinced.
Next up in weird announcements, Magic the Gathering is getting an animated show on Netflix from the Russo brothers.
Yeah, that's just Okay.
Basically.
You know what? If they give me this and they kill Jace, I will be super happy.
They're probably not going to kill Jace, nor should they.
They should always kill Jace.
He
Jace
does need
is
to
the
be
worst.
less prominent. He's becoming less prominent, so I'm mostly okay with that.
Jace is worse than Teferi.
Wow.
Wow. I guess I've played against enough Teferis to disagree with that, but I can understand. I think Teferi is actually pretty cool from a lore perspective, but I don't reflexively hate time travel.
So I like time mages. Time travel I can give or take. Sometimes it's cool, mostly it's not. But
I'm really interested in this because Magic has a whole bunch of lore that is very interesting from a lore perspective, and I would like to see a group of competent storytellers try and tell a story in that world.
Yes.
I would like. Frankly, I hope this is successful, and maybe it paves the way for big names to do, I don't know, an Overwatch show, or a League of Legends show, or any of these other interesting worlds with, like, games around them that do not allow for fully explored stories in them.
I would love it if this went all the way back. And this started with, like, the Brothers' War.
Nope, they're not going to do it.
No, absolutely
They're
not.
not going to do it, and I'm going to be so sad about it, because that would be a great story, but they're not going to, because they're way too obsessed with the Gatewatch.
Dominaria and everything related to it just aren't cool anymore.
Nobody cares about that anymore.
It makes me sad, because, like, as a novel, the Jeff Grubb Brothers' War is amazing.
I just finished rereading it, and as a novel, it is so much better than the War of the Spark book. It hurts.
So based on what we know, I would put forward a guess that it's going to happen on Ravnica, or not on Ravnica, on Innistrad.
Wait, what?
This series will cross the genres of suspenseful thriller, horror, and drama with deeply developed characters.
I'm gonna go with Kaladesh for all of the same reasons.
I feel like Kaladesh doesn't have that many horror elements. I mean, unless you're really afraid of, artifacts.
Creepy cyborg beetle things? Yeah.
But actual Draculas?
Passe.
And
I feel like
Alucard?
I feel like actual Dracula is just, they're not in anymore.
Okay, fine. That Netflix already has Castlevania the series too.
Yeah.
They don't need two Alucards.
So I would also guess that it is based on either the current Gatewatch or something like the Gate. I could see it based on the Gatewatch or based on the crew of the Weatherlight. Based on, like, if they enjoyed the work that they did on Avengers and they like big ensemble casts, which is what the Avengers is really all about, then those are the big ensemble casts in Magic.
But, like, how do you do the Weatherlight without going back a ways?
Well, there's...
The Weatherlight has a new crew.
Yep.
They're stuck on Dominaria, but they exist. And you could tell stories about them.
I mean, you would have to, I guess, start at this point forward, because, like, the previous story of the Weatherlight really doesn't make any sense unless you know who Urza is.
Yes.
And the best way to know about Urza is the Brothers' War.
I mean, it's entirely possible that they could, start with current stuff and seed, like, backstory about Urza and Mishra and all of that.
I mean, if
they might also want to tell news stories rather than talk about the other stuff.
Possible too.
And there's a lot of space in Magic to tell new stories. It's literally about a bunch of heroes that travel to different dimensions.
I mean, I would rather have brand new, unique content than stuff about Jace.
Well, sure.
Well, I got bad news for you.
I mean, I feel, like, I gotta say, to me, Jace is the Corso Riggs of Magic the Gathering.
Wow. I like Jace.
There are people that like Corso Riggs.
Wow.
See,
are you sure about that?
I don't know anybody.
I know at least one person.
I don't know. I don't feel like the Jace character archetype is, like, super overplayed. Like, I find Jace kind of tiresome just because the character who's always good at everything and a step ahead of everyone else all the time is not, like, gets old fast. But the character that I find really tiresome is actually Chandra.
And Chandra,
look, let's set everything on fire again. I have a short fuse and I've never learned anything.
I mean, I feel like Jaya is a way better fire archetype for
Yes.
Planeswalkers.
Yes.
Mhm.
Jaya Ballard is great. That's a significantly better character.
I mean, her character type is still sets everything on fire, but also
Well,
she
yes.
jokes.
But she has a
Yeah.
job.
Has
to do,
restraint.
And her job is to set everything on fire.
she is a task mage.
It's not just
She
because
hasn't
she
been a
lost her
task
temper.
mage for a long time.
Jaya's great, and I love the way that they've allowed Jaya to age over time, which is
Yes.
not really something they've allowed to happen to any of the other Planeswalkers.
Well,
Teferi got a lot older.
Teferi went backwards in time.
Well, yeah, Teferi started really old and now is getting younger.
Yes.
Oh, so he's Merlin. Okay.
I'm pretty sure he is no longer. He's not like actively de-aging. I am pretty sure that through the Great. I think I want to blame it on the Great Mending. You can blame most things on the Great Mending. He got back a whole bunch of time.
The thing with... So my problem with Teferi is not that I don't like the character, it's just that Mirage came out and they needed a new Urza, and bam, we got Teferi. Like, that's largely what I feel about the character of Teferi.
At least Urza has a card now.
Yeah, finally. I'm more excited about the Yawgmoth card, but though...
I didn't expect them to go that far back on Yawgmoth or Urza, but they did.
They did, yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. Like, I am vastly interested in seeing, like, I'm interested in this for the same reason I've said I'd be interested in Overwatch and interested in League of Legends. I really feel like there's great compelling stories to be told here. I feel like the core medium of the game doesn't lend itself super well to telling a story. Like, I find it interesting because they sure do try to tell, like, vignettes through their cards, but I'd be really interested to see a more narrative-driven thing take this big Bible of information and try and bring it to life.
Okay, so speaking of things that you mentioned in Overwatch anime, so there was news that came out this week that Blizzard had canceled a game that they had been working on. And as part of this leak, it came out that they're working on Overwatch 2, and supposedly it's PvE focused, so it's going to be like a narrative game.
Okay.
I might actually play that.
I'm all on board for that. So,
Oh, yeah. That will hopefully be cool.
I am
like, well,
curious.
the thing is I love the setting of Overwatch. I just don't want to play Overwatch. But anyway, that's all that's really known about it, is like it's a thing they're supposedly working on and may announce at BlizzCon.
Does it have a project name of Titan?
Look, Titan became Overwatch. The
I
remnants
know.
of Titan became Overwatch.
I understand, but I'm like, oh, so you're going back to that well again, are you?
Yeah, so the game that got canceled was apparently a game set in the StarCraft universe that was an FPS that was using the Overwatch engine.
StarCraft Ghost? I mean, wait.
I was gonna say, wow, Ghost is just never gonna get made, is it?
No, it's never going to get made.
They're gonna keep trying and get, like, you realize you can just give up, guys.
I mean, maybe we're going to see a reboot of Warcraft Adventures using the Overwatch engine.
Look, no, stop.
That'd be great.
That would be amazing.
I feel like they aren't entirely sure what to do with the Warcraft property right now.
I feel like they're also not
Yeah.
entirely certain what to do with the StarCraft property.
What gave you that clue that their current plan is let's just go back to where it started?
I mean, they haven't released a classic version of Warcraft 1 or 2 yet.
It's coming.
I mean, the remake of 3 is happening soon, so...
Yeah.
I still remember an April Fool's joke being like World of Warcraft RTS edition.
So I think we have enough time to talk about this as well, since we got a late start. But a Nintendo Direct happened that was targeted towards something that probably interests most of us. Pokemon Sword and Shield.
It did Pokemon Sword and Shield Direct with
There's
yet another new random power-up system.
Do not Dynamax your Wailord.
So I will admit that I know very, very little about this. I did not watch the Direct. but I did see the legendaries, which has a dog with a sword in its mouth, and I'm
Not
getting
Sif.
that edition.
Yeah, I think I'm totally going sword.
That's a good boy.
I mean, basically the way I choose these editions is the legendary that I most likely want to play with is the edition I get. As a whole, though, like, I'm really interested in Pokemon England or Pokemon Scotland or whatever
Pokemon
version.
UK.
Definitely Pokemon UK. It's definitely got some Scotland parts and some England parts. Don't know if it has some Wales parts or some Ireland parts yet.
I really, really hope it has Wales.
The area where no one can understand you and you can't understand them.
Yeah.
I just want to see what lessons they've learned from Let's Go.
Well, so that's what I'm really interested about, because it's not necessarily a Let's Go game, right?
No, it's definitely not a Let's Go game.
It does seem to have borrowed some things. Like there seems to be a big open area where there are not random encounters and Pokemon are just wandering around. So who knows?
Well, and like, considering how much travel they made, seeing those areas, like, I wonder if that's just the entire game.
They've shown other areas where, like, I guess Let's Go also had normal looking tall grass that just had Pokemon wandering around.
Yeah.
So who knows?
But in Let's Go, they would just pop on top of you. So you would actually see them pop up, and then you would fight them or capture them or whatever you did. You didn't really fight them, you just captured them.
I mean, the UK is known for their, for the lush, well-kept lawns. Maybe there's just not enough long grass for the Pokemon to hide in. They keep it all mowed.
The world has fallen in love with the sheep Pokemon. I have seen so much artwork over the last couple days.
The sheep and the crow, like,
yes.
People seem to like both of those.
Yeah.
The crow is also largely could be thought of as Dark Souls themed too.
I mean, it's a giant crow in armor. And I do mean giant. It's like, 7 feet tall?
Isn't that supposed to be like the transportation system?
Yeah.
Is it named Morrigan?
No.
Okay.
I guess you can name yours that if you really want to.
Isn't this also, like, supposed to be a November release?
Yes.
I think the
November...
release date is actually the same as the Star Wars game. So...
That's a bad idea, EA.
I mean,
never
I'm sure it'll work out for them, clearly.
Yeah.
Never underestimate the draw of Pokemon. Especially when, like, Pokemon is going to be way more of a zeitgeist game than EA ever will have.
But it's Star Wars. Star Wars can plow through anything, right?
No, it's a Star Wars narrative game. Like, there's no drive to immediately be the first to finish it. There's probably no multiplayer aspect.
It's an EA game. You're saying it's not going to have multiplayer?
I figure if like at this point they would have mentioned it.
Maybe they are afraid to mention it.
Yeah.
Maybe they realize that they are EA and don't necessarily have the best track record with, like, how they do multiplayer content.
I don't know. I know this will be a game that sells a lot of units.
I do wonder if they're going to move Fallen Order's release date. Or if they keep it as is on the theory that people are already coming to stores for Pokemon.
I like your optimism there.
I've heard that logic, no matter how wrong it actually is.
It's not like picking up milk and toilet paper at the same time. Like, these are different purchases than that. So I know Bethesda is a show that's tomorrow, and I think there's another show, and I don't know if it's the Microsoft or if the Microsoft's on Monday. It seems like Bethesda is going to be leaning hard into Doom Eternal.
Yeah.
Like, that's the only thing that I've really heard prior to the show that's their big thing, and like that's what they painted on the side of a building.
The other thing is that they already said Starfield and ES6 are not going to be there.
Yeah. Which is good that they set expectations.
They've learned, I guess.
I think Devolver Digital is like late tomorrow night as well.
Yeah, but that's not really a show.
No.
I mean, that's a show, but it's not really like a conference or news or informative.
It's performance art.
The only show like that I'm really curious about at this point is probably Microsoft's, because like I fully expect that we're going to get like a next gen console announcement and probably an xCloud announcement. There's supposedly a lot more information for Jedi Fallen Order coming from the Microsoft show as well. And I am not sure if we have enough time to really dig into that last topic.
Let's save it for later.
Okay. Anything else short?
I don't think so.
other than Ubisoft, what are you doing? No, not really.
What that? Okay, explain.
Just Ubisoft is dumb. Is the super short version of this. The slightly longer version is Ubisoft is going on about how their games are apolitical and how it's really important that their games are apolitical because it helps them make actually mature games. And I can't get any further because I just drown under the size of my own ellipse. No,
it's amazing how they're wrong in that statement, and then they're also wrong about how they're wrong.
Yeah. They do this incredible job of being just tremendously wrong on like 5 levels at once. And it makes me nuts. Like, rather than going off on a rant, what I'm going to say is games are a communications medium. Media have messages. You can't avoid that. Lean into it. And if you abdicate responsibility for the message you are sending, that doesn't mean a message doesn't exist.
Yep. Especially when you explicitly build games that talk about things that are very political.
Yep.
Like shadow governments taking over, or religious cults, or, like any other game that they've released over the last decade.
It's in fact important that you know what your point is, because a point will be made whether you want to or not.
Yes.
Yes.
And the problem is, in these scenarios, if you don't take the point of the game, then oftentimes the games deliver a really twisted and disturbing message.
Mm-hmm. Because you're not paying attention to it.
Yeah, you need to know what your game is saying.
Yeah.
And you're not clever and subversive if you constantly deny this thing that your game is constantly trying to say.
Yeah, I didn't mean that. Doesn't matter. But yeah, that's my short thing at the end.
And similarly, from that show that I think happens on Monday, I wonder if we're going to get a Damn Beyond Good and Evil 2 release date yet?
No.
Or if that game is going to continue to bump along like it's been doing for the last couple decades.
Yep.
Anyway, hopefully you enjoy the show, and we will see you again next week. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
See you.